Welcome back, everybody. Today I'm going to be showing you how to put down vinyl plank flooring. In this case, I'm putting it in my basement, but the same process would work anywhere in your house. And I have to say, this process is really easy. I think anybody can do this with a couple simple tools and the better part of a day to get the job done. Stick around until the end of the video and I'll show you how you can make all these cuts with just a utility knife. And if you're interested, I'll have another video out next week with how to do your baseboard. Coping the corners and caulking all the seams so you end up with this nice, clean, professional look. And if you like this video, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe. Thank you. Alright, you only need a few tools to put down vinyl plank flooring. This is literally the simplest that you'll need. You'll need some sort of rubber mallet, a tapping block, a utility knife with extra blades, tape measure, and a pencil. Now, you can certainly do this entire job with just these simple tools. It's going to be a little slow and there'll be some parts that are a little bit more difficult. So there are a few other tools that will make your life a whole bunch easier. Now the tools that are going to make your life easier are going to be a jigsaw, an oscillating cutoff tool, a chop saw or a circular saw, whichever one you have handy, and a table saw if you have one. You really don't need a table saw, but for any of the long cuts on the planks, it makes life a lot easier and a lot faster. So if you have one, it's worth the trip downstairs or to the garage to use it. If you don't have one, you can get away with a circular saw and even the utility knife if you need to. Now there's a whole bunch of different vinyl plank flooring types of varying qualities. I'm going to be going with this brand from Home Depot called Lifeproof. And this specific one that I'm using, there's two important things. So one, the thickness, it's 8 millimeters thick, so it's fairly robust. And the second thing is it already has a backer attached to the underside of it, so there's no need for any sort of underlayment to go down. And I think both of these things are super important. The thickness is important because you definitely want something that's going to be able to stand up to a little bit of abuse. You want it to be able to get nicked, and you don't want to get through that layer of vinyl to see the core material of the planking. And then the underlayment, just having it already attached to the plank makes the installation really quick and easy, and basically negates an entire extra step of having to put down underlayment separate from the planks themselves. Okay, jumping right in, there's a couple things that you can do here with regards to your baseboard. The easiest is, of course, to just remove the baseboard and put up new baseboard once your flooring's fully installed. Or you can leave your baseboard up and use a shoe molding to cover up any gap. Or what I'm doing here, simply undercutting the baseboard. Now, undercutting the baseboard is great when it's a small area. When it's a large area, this really isn't an option as it's very tedious and time consuming. All right, once you made the decision to either remove the baseboard or work with the existing baseboard, the next thing that you're going to need to do is you're going to need to undercut all of your door frames with the oscillating tool. Now, if you don't have an oscillating tool, you can do this with a flush cut saw or a small pull saw. The oscillating tool is the fastest way to go about this. Now, you can see I'm doing this the same way I trim the baseboard, just simply by using a scrap piece of cutoff of the vinyl flooring and pushing in with the oscillating tool. It might be a little bit hard to tell, but as I'm pushing in, I'm actually sloping the oscillating tool downwards a bit because I do want it to fit in there snugly. I don't want a big gap. Even though I'm going to come back and caulk it in the end, I still want it to be as small of a gap as possible. So now you're ready to start putting down the flooring, but before you do that, you do have to take a couple quick measurements and make a few calculations. The main reason for doing this is you definitely don't want to be stuck with a sliver of a plank on one side of the room and a full plank on the other side. So take a few minutes, take some measurements, and get it right. So to start off the first row, you're going to put a bunch of 1/4-inch spacers against the wall to give the plank some room for expansion and contraction. In this case, I'm just using a bunch of pieces of 1/4-inch plywood that I've cut and taped to the wall. From there, the first row of plank is assembled in one piece, as you can see here, and pushed directly against the wall. And this is simply to ensure that your first row is perfectly straight, even though your wall might not be straight. With the first row down, this really becomes a very repetitive process until you either get to a door frame or similar obstacle that you're forced to stop and cut around and navigate around. So here you can see we're just going to lay plank after plank. The planks slide directly into the groove of the plank behind it, which you can see here. And then we're using a rubber mallet to tap the short seam, and then a tapping block to tap along the long edge. And tapping along the long edge simply seats the tongue and groove on the long edge to the plank behind it. Now, that's super important because if you don't do this part, the planks won't actually be fully locked together. And this is a little bit out of order, but I did want to show you how I went about cutting around a door frame and corners to get certain planks to fit. And all of these cuts in this case I just made using a jigsaw. Again, you could do this with the utility knife, but you really do stand a pretty good chance of chipping out some of the corners. And small chips are going to be okay because they're going to either be hidden by the casing or by the baseboard, but you do run the risk of chipping or breaking the board beyond what would be covered up. Quick trick if you don't want to measure, take the board and flip it in the opposite direction of how it's going to go in, so like this. And then just mark on it where you want to cut it. And then when you flip it back over, you're going to have the exact size. So I'll just cut that, come right back. As I said before, you can make these cuts with something as simple as a utility knife, but it really is a lot easier, a lot cleaner, a lot more accurate to either use your miter saw or to use a circular saw to make these cuts. Okay, we're back. Slide this right in. Perfect. And you can see how quickly this is going down for the two of us. We're not exactly working hard here, but the floor is going down quite quick. I've done this before. This is the second time I've put down vinyl flooring. This is the first time my wife's done it, so I had to spend a little bit of time explaining to her exactly how to go about doing it. But all in all, the two of us were able to put down this floor in approximately 5 hours, and that did include a lunch break. So it was probably more like 4.5 hours. And also included in that time was moving all of the furniture and gym equipment from one side of this room to the other. Now that we're on the final wall, I just wanted to show you how easy the table saw makes cutting these long rips for the final rows. So obviously the underlayment side needs to be up, otherwise that would catch on the table saw, but you could see how the laminate just cuts like butter. And this is the last row going in right here. You can see the wall's a little wonky right there, and there's a bit of a gap, but when we put down the baseboard, that will cover that right up. With the floor wrapped up now, I'm going to show you how to install a threshold. The threshold can go from laminate to laminate or from laminate to another type of flooring. So I'm using this threshold kit that I got from Home Depot again, same place I got the flooring, and it's an exact color match to the flooring that I have. The installation on this is pretty simple. You're just going to cut the pieces to the length that you want, And then you have to figure out, based off of which surfaces you're going to, exactly how you sandwich the various components of the threshold kit together. Now, to put this down, since I'm just putting it directly to an epoxied subfloor, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to scuff up the surface with a piece of sandpaper to make sure that the Loctite adheres pretty good to the floor. And then I'm just going to glue the first piece down. And then I'm going to glue the second and the third piece on top of that, making sure to that I'm squishing them down flat, and then I'm getting any excess glue so that there's no bumps. If there was any bumps when I went to clip the final piece of the threshold down, you would see little gaps on the edge of where it meets the laminate. All right, before I put the last piece on, just want to notice that I was very careful not to get any glue out either side. And that's simply because you don't want to glue the floor to the transition. You still want the floor to have enough room to expand and contract. Now, it's a little less important in this direction as it is on the direction going along the length of it, but you do want to leave yourself a little room. So honestly, I'm probably a little tight over there, but everywhere else looks good. Now this last piece is smooth on the back, so I just went a little bit more conservative with the glue so that I don't get a lot of squeeze out on this last one. All right, the last step is to clip on the threshold piece, and then I'm going to put the weights on top of that. Now, you could leave this like this and try to weight this down. It's a little bit difficult with this sticking up like this. So if I put the threshold piece on top, that will give me good even down pressure across everything. All right, just gonna put the transition on now. All right, so cutting the plank floor is really simple. You can do it with something as simple as a utility knife. You can use a circular saw, you can use a jigsaw. When I do this, I'm going to do it all with my miter saw, and any more complicated cuts, I'm going to use a jigsaw, but I'm going to go ahead and show you how simple this is to just cut with a utility knife. So you really don't need a square. I'm going to use the square just so I get a nice straight line here. All you're going to do is you're going to line up your blade against that square and you're going to score it. And I usually do 2 or 3 scores. Once you have those in there, and that's it. Now you'll notice on mine has a backer, so it didn't go all the way through. All I got to do is take the knife now, pull it through, and a nice clean cut. Okay, just to show you that a long cut is possible with just a blade, I'm going to go ahead and run a cut right down here. Okay, so you can see you can cut it with a razor blade. That cut is really, really rough and all over the place. And you can see at the end there where I moved my straight edge, I didn't get a clean cut because I didn't get a good score on the surface, so it caused it to break. So the point of this is you can certainly do the whole job with just a utility knife, but you're probably going to have some issues and it's going to be a little slow if you go this route. So You can, but not necessarily the best thing to do. Here's one last look at the finished floor. And thanks for watching, everybody. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing and checking out some of my other videos. Thanks again.